India downgrades ties with Pakistan. India tells Pakistan reduce High Commission staff. Pakistan officials involved in espionage and terror. %50 staff cut in 7 days. Zero tolerance for Pak terror. That's our top focus on India first.
Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from an altitude of over 11,500 feet. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This broadcast comes to you from Leh. Chief of the Army Staff, General Manoj Mukund Naravne, arrived in Leh, and as soon as he landed, he headed straight to the military hospital to interact with the braves of the Indian Army who had pushed back the Chinese aggressors at Galwan. What a morale booster for the soldiers and for their chief. But what's more important, it just left the Red Army red-faced. Imagine in India, our braves who made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, they were given full military honors, their last rites. Also the injured, the army chief went to meet them. Contrast this with the soldiers of the Chinese army who died unsung for an ungrateful nation and an even more ungrateful army. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We'll get you the latest on what's happening along the line of actual control. But as always, let's get started with the headlines on India First. India and China agree to mutually disengage in Ladakh and continue talks. Army chief reviews the operational preparedness in Ladakh. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in Moscow seeks speedy delivery of the S-400 anti-missile system. Russia rules out any mediation between India and China as three nations hold trilateral dialogue. Biggest single-day spike in coronavirus infection in the national capital. Nearly 4,000 cases and 68 deaths recorded in Delhi in the past 24 hours. Yoga Guru Baba Ramdev's corona cure drug lands in a major controversy. The Ayush Ministry asks Patanjali to stop advertising Coronel without due government approval. Our top focus story on the broadcast is the conversation between the co-commander of the Fire and Fury Corps on the Indian side and the South Xinjiang military district on the Chinese side. Now, this dialogue that started at 11:30 in the morning yesterday went on till 11:45 last night. And officers said this is an indication that both India and China want to disengage, mutually disengage and dial down tension along the LAC. The question remains, can India afford to trust China?
The bloody battle along the line of actual control in Ladakh, in which India lost 20 men, pushed tensions with China to unprecedented levels. A week later, the ice seems to be melting. After a marathon meeting on Monday between top military commanders, there was a mutual consensus to disengage. The army said that the modalities of disengagement from all friction areas in eastern Ladakh were discussed. But the bloodshed in Galwan has left India extremely suspicious of Chinese promises.
हमको हर एक परिस्थिति के लिए तैयार होना है. चीन पे विश्वास करना आत्मघातक होगा. तो हमको worst contingency scenario के लिए पूरी तरह से तैयार होने की जरूरत है.
India today has learned from top sources that during the talks, India demanded that PLA troops to pull back pre-May 4 locations. That is, beyond Finger 8 in the Pangong Tso. India has also asserted that it will continue with road building on its side. India has warned China that it will respond to violence of any kind, and with interest, stating that peace is a two-way street.
भारत ने अपना रिजॉल्व दिखा दिया है, अपनी दृढ़ता दिखा दी है कि जो हालात इस समय LAC पे बने हुए हैं, चाहे वो गलवान वैली में हो, चाहे वो पेंगोंग सो लेक को लेकर के हो, भारत जो है पीछे हटने वाला नहीं है। और इसके चलते अब चीन को ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि अगर वो पीछे नहीं हटता है और प्री अप्रैल के स्टेटस पे नहीं जाता है, तो इसके आगे उसके सामने और क्या-क्या समस्याएं खड़ी हो सकती हैं।
In a clear message of intent, Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Narwane met the braves of Galwan clash at a military hospital in Leh. The chief is in Ladakh for a two-day visit. General Narwane is also visiting Ladakh forward posts to review the situation.
India told China in no uncertain terms violence at the LAC was unacceptable. New rules of engagement. If there's violence, the Chinese will be paid back with interest. India also insisted that road construction on Indian side will continue, and the need for China is first disengage, then de-escalate, and finally de-induct, and all that needs to be verified. With cameraman Kripal Singh and Bakir Cho in Leh, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. I quickly want to bring in India Today's editor, Defence Abhishek Bhalla, for more on the story. Also joining us on the broadcast is Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh. He's commanded a corps in Kashmir. He's been former Additional Director General of Military Operations. But Abhishek, to you first, I want to understand from you. We know the broad contours of the conversation, but what's the implementation on ground? How will India verify whether China will actually disengage and not stab us in the back like it did in Galwan?
It's a big task, Gaurav, and the big question is whether China will adhere to what has been decided for the second time. A similar roadmap for disengagement was decided on the 6th of June, but China decided not to go by what was decided, and on the 15th of June we had that ugly clash. So what I have learned from sources now is that this disengagement is going to take place in a staggered manner in different phases. So places where there has been no violence, where there has been no friction, and comparatively better off, those places will be the focus in the initial phase. In the second phase, obviously, the de-induction of troops as well as armor and artillery that's been brought by, that will be carried out. And the third phase will be the most crucial one because that's when the current Galwan area where the clash took place, as well as Pengong So, which remains the biggest hurdle till now, will be addressed. It remains to be seen whether commanders on the ground can reach a consensus for a final resolution. But what I'm told is that many more meetings at the field commander level are expected.
Fair enough. Stay with me. General Gurmeet Singh, can India afford to trust China, given the fact that even if they pretend to disengage, even if they pretend to move back, China has a better road infrastructure. They can come back faster. We move back and they occupy that area. That'll be a bigger cause for concern.
One of the biggest casualty of 15 June 2020 in Galwan is the trust. In fact, the treachery and the deception which the China and PLA exhibited on that day, 15 June, it is very difficult. I don't know how many years ahead it will take to at least look at the word trust as it relates to PLA. But I would like to bring out one point, three small points related to 15 June. 15 June hereafter will be remembered for the saga of valor, control, commitment and supreme sacrifice of Indian Army. It will be remembered for exposing the PLA and the treachery of China as far as the trust is concerned. Third is the way they dishonored the agreement's protocol and practices. That is what is most important. And today, yesterday, the meeting that we had, it is in the backdrop of the last meeting we had on 6 June and the period between 6 June to 15 June, which did not bring a correction which was required in the policies and the intention of PLA. That is the background, and therefore now the
General, stay with me.
From the point of view,
Okay?
No.
You know, you talked of the valor of our braves, and it is my proud privilege to bring you the story of the valor of our braves. The fact that the army chief, when he landed in Leh, before assessment of ground situation, he went straight to the soldiers to give them a big shabash. Very heartening for the soldiers who were there at the military hospital in Leh. And from what I've been told by my sources in the army, they say that the soldiers told the chief that we are raring to go back. They're raring to go back once again to Galwan or to anywhere else along the line of actual control and defend our motherland. So that is the valor of the Indian army. Something that fills the soldiers with pride, something that fills perhaps even the chief with pride and the entire nation with pride. And just contrast this with the Chinese army. The Red Army surely would be red-faced. It is not acknowledging the number of soldiers who have died. Of course, India knows the figures. India knows facts. But India doesn't want the Red Army more red-faced. Otherwise, India's also handed over bodies. India's also handed over soldiers of the Chinese army to China at the border. And that's very clear. But China does not acknowledge its dead. China does not honor its injured soldiers or its braves. The question remains, why are they even fighting for the People's Liberation Army or the Chinese Communist Party Army? And General Gurmeet Singh, as a soldier, you've been a soldier for 4 decades. What morale, what impact does this have on the morale when the chief comes and meets the soldier in a hospital and says, shabash, well done. And the soldier says, sir, task half done. I want to go back and finish it.
You know, it's a very intoxicating feeling within the soldier. His passion, his commitment, his determination, everything gets a force multiplier effect into that, you know. When the head of the family, when the head of the entire Indian army comes and gives you a pat on your back, you feel that your life, mission and purpose has been there. And in fact, what Indian army has done on 15 June, hereafter for 100 or 200 years, entire world will remember this day of 15 June 2020 because these boys are commanding officers. These 19 soldiers and the commanding officer together has rewritten the entire chapter on PLA and China in totality. It has brought to the entire India that oneness, that it has told them that what is the worth of an Indian soldier. Indian soldiers' combat experience in
and
the
it's perhaps told the entire leadership of our country, we cannot afford to trust China. It's told the entire leadership, political leadership, diplomatic leadership, military leadership, all sorts of leadership, you cannot afford to trust China. It's, you know, as they say, jaisa hoga an, jaisa khaoge an, vaisa hoga man. They eat snakes. They behave like snakes. That's the truth about the adversary that we are dealing with at this point of time. But now I want to shift focus to the other big story on the broadcast, and that is Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in Russia trying to speed up the procurement of the S-400 anti-missile system, and that truly would be a game changer. Plus, the Su-30 MKIs, the MiG-29 air superiority fighters, the nuclear submarines and the utility helicopters. It's a big list. How much will we get? Remains to be seen.
While efforts are on to get Chinese troops to withdraw at the LAC, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has launched a diplomatic initiative in Moscow to put pressure on Beijing. In Moscow to attend events to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the victory over Germany in World War II, Rajnath Singh on Tuesday met the top Russian leadership.
मॉस्को में मेरी विजिट कोविड पैंडेमिक के बाद इंडिया के किसी भी ऑफिशियल डेलीगेशन की पहली या फॉरेन विजिट है। यह हमारी खास दोस्ती का एक यह प्रमाण है।
The defense minister explained how China's aggressive actions had led to increased tensions between the two Himalayan neighbors. Nearly half of India's military arsenal is of Russian origin, and the LAC face-off has spurred India to draw up emergency procurement lists from Russia. Early delivery of the S-400 systems, as well as the deal for 33 fighter jets, are high on India's wish list. India is also looking to acquire urgent spares for its Russian origin fighter jets, tanks, warships and submarines.
मुझे भरोसा दिलाया गया है ऑनगोइंग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स को मेंटेन किया जाएगा और न केवल मेंटेन किया जाएगा बल्कि उनको और तेजी से कम समय में पूरा भी किया जाएगा, यह भी भरोसा दिलाया गया है। हमारे सारे प्रपोजल्स को रशियन साइड की ओर से पॉजिटिव रेस्पॉन्स मिला है।
While Rajnath was engaging leaders in Kremlin, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar took part in the Russia-India-China Foreign Ministers meeting. Jaishankar invoked India's contribution to World War II and the defeat of Nazism and fascism.
This special meeting reiterates our belief in the time-tested principles of international relations. But the challenge today is not just one of concepts and norms, but equally of their practice. I thank Russia for convening this meeting, and I look forward to our further discussions.
Despite the strategic partnership between Russia and China during the India-China standoff at the border at LAC, Moscow has come to stand with New Delhi, agreeing to sell arms despite objections from Beijing. In New Delhi, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Shiv Arur, who joins us for more on the story. And Shiv, the S-400s, the MiG-29 air superiority fighter, the Su-30 air dominance fighters, when they come in, will be a more potent force. But is there a timeline? What's Rajnath Singh hoping to achieve in this visit?
Well, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, just made a statement in Moscow saying that he's had very good discussions with the Russians and that, amidst all this tension and uncertainty, not just with COVID, but also at the border. And remember, Russia also has a relationship with China. He says he's been assured that the existing contracts and new contracts will not only be maintained, but expeditious delivery will happen, which is what India is actually looking for, Gaurav. The main thing that India, of course, wants speeded up is the S-400 air defense missile system, which was contracted a couple of years ago. India is hoping that there are absolutely no delays in that. My information is that the earliest deliveries of this complicated system will be by sometime next year. There will be a lead time for India to actually set up this very complicated system. So that's there as well. But Rajnath Singh has pressed upon that. There are new contracts afoot for additional Su-30 fighters, MiG-29 fighters, which, as you know, are already deployed in Ladakh. The Indian Air Force already has large numbers of these. But in the event of a two-front war, Pakistan and China, and we've got trouble with both, never before more manifest than it is now. All of these systems are going to be extremely important. Also, logistical, weaponry like utility helicopters, which can operate at high altitude. There's a program with the Russians that hasn't made any progress for over 2 years. So that's another critical thing that Rajnath Singh will be looking at. The Defense Secretary is with him. So all of these things, when combined, show that the current operational situation in Ladakh has very much sort of lit a fire under the Indian system and compelled it to sort of speed up the procurement of these extremely important weapon systems that are required, not just in the event of an outbreak of war, which is a remote possibility,
but also for protection of our borders, to send out a message. I also want to quickly bring in Geeta Mohan for more on this. And Geeta, the Chinese seem to put out a report that seemed to indicate that the Defense Minister of China and India will be together at the Second World War Victory Day parade. But India is saying that's really not happening. So what are these, these psychological warfare games that are happening?
Well, a few things have happened, Gaurav. To begin with, the news that Global Times put out was that there could be a meeting between the Defense Minister of China and India on the sidelines of the Victory Day parade. It's absolutely untrue. The Indian government has cleared that there is going to be no bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the participation by defense ministers of India and China at the Victory Day parade. Secondly, the defense minister, sources tell India Today, has in no uncertain terms told in the conversation that he had with the Deputy Prime Minister of Russia that India is going to secure its borders, and there should be no doubt about that, talking about the Chinese advances and the India-China standoff. And finally, before I end, Gaurav, the Chinese propaganda and the psyops continue. Even before the meetings were to take place, Chinese People's Daily, that's the Chinese mouthpiece, put out an entire propaganda piece on a Facebook a page that had a lot of strategic community people from Russia asking Russia not to sell arms to India, but that was not to be. Russia and India are together when it comes to defense cooperation, and Moscow stands by New Delhi.
And this is a relationship that has stood the test of time. Geeta, for the moment, many thanks for joining me, Geeta and Shiv. Now, India today has accessed a video from across the line of actual control. This video shows the Chinese build-up. Remember, Chinese are talking about disengagement. But remember, last time they talked about disengagement, they were building up. Are they doing the same this time? Take a look at this video and you decide for yourself.
Oh, 打印度，操他妈的！哇，这么多了，看。那是走印度，看，看来中印边界是有大问题，很走印度。不是都将军级的谈判都已经。哇，你看后面，操，不得了嘛，厉害了。
So while China talks peace and disengagement, it's actually mobilizing its forces in a big way. These images uploaded on Chinese social media around the 17th of June seem to indicate that China is mobilizing in a very big way, whether it's armored personal carriers, tanks, 155mm self-propelled howitzers. These images appear to be from the Mansarovar area in Tibet. They appear to be mobilizing all the way from Depsang in the north to Demchok in the south through Galwan and Pengong So. So there still is clear and present danger, and India cannot afford to just trust China's words. With cameraman Kripal Singh in Leh, Ladakh, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. General Gurmeet Singh, you're looking at these images of the Chinese build-up. There's also satellite imagery, unmanned aerial vehicles, their images, and all of that seem to indicate while China talks about disengagement, it's actually building up. How should India deal with China? Because this is where military diplomacy has a very crucial role to play.
Firstly, China is only good in media war, propaganda war, and psychological war. We have seen PLA is their professionalism, their inefficiency, their lies and propaganda. And we have seen how unsoldierly they are on 15 June. In fact, the nation which doesn't even own up the mortal remains of its soldier, and let's not talk about it, the ethics which they've got. And as far as we are concerned, I think we are on the path of preparedness, capability, capacity, and the skills. If you notice that all elements of power, whether it is diplomacy, or information, media, economy, technology, politics, our national leadership, everyone is on one path of remaining alert and prepared.
Truly, our soldiers on ground are alert. They need to be very, very alert, because here is a treacherous adversary that India just cannot afford to trust anymore. General Gurmeet Singh, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. We will continue to report from Ground Zero on the latest developments. The Chief of the Army Staff, General Narwade, is in town. He's holding an interaction with all top commanders on what India needs to do. He'll also visit troops on ground. We'll be reporting on that. But that is all I have for you on this India Today special broadcast from Leh. Many thanks for watching.